Once you have the radical on a side by itself, you undo the radical by whatever power your index is. The 2x minus the 5 equals a 49. And now you're going to solve. And I'm going to tell you that there are several of you making 9th grade Algebra 1 mistakes. And unlike Miss Puckett, who is a sweetheart, I am not. If you have this problem and you write x is equal to 2/54, I will count it wrong every single time and you get no partial credit. What number goes on the bottom? The 2, because you are dividing by 2. And the fact that you're being lazy and not showing this step and then you're writing the reciprocal as a senior or a junior in high school is unforgivable. And you get no partial credit. It is 27, not 1/27. And there were several of you on that last test that did everything right until that very last step, and you wrote 23/11 instead of 11/23. And at that point, it's no credit. Okay, so make sure you show all of those steps. How do you check to make sure that 27, is the correct answer? So I'm going to type in the square root. 2 times 27 minus 5, enter. Does that equal the other side? Yes, it does. It checks, so I'm good. Okay, make sure you are checking the answer. Yeah, anytime you have a problem that says solve, you shouldn't have any corrections on it because you know how to check to know if you've got the right answer. All right, so at this point, you have the square root equals a negative number. What do you know? A negative times a negative equals a positive. So is there any square root number that's going to be negative? You don't even waste your time. That is no solution. Now, if it's a cubed root, that's different. Cubed roots can equal negative numbers because the cubed root of a -8 is a -2. But if it's a square root, it is not possible. So don't waste your time. 2t minus 4 equals t minus 2. Do I have the radical on a side by itself? Yes, I do. How do I undo that radical? You square it. How do you square t minus 2? Yes and yes. So it is t squared minus 4t plus 4. And I know there are about 4 of you sitting there going, say, what? How did you do that? If you multiply t minus 2 by itself and you FOIL it, first times first is t squared. Outer, inner always combines to give you the middle. So a -2 and a -2 is a -4, and a -2 times a -2 is a +4. All right? Now, we've got a quadratic. How do you solve quadratic equations? I'm going to subtract the 2t and I'm going to add the 4, subtract the 2t and add the 4, and get all of them on a side by itself. And now you're going to have to factor that thing that some of you never learned. What are factors of 8 that add to give you 6? T times t is t squared. 2 times 4 is 8. A negative times a negative is a positive, and when you have a negative and a negative added, you get a -6. T minus 2 equals 0. T minus 4 equals 0. So we're going to add the 2. T is 2, or We're going to add 4. T is 4. Now, since I am looking at two different numbers, then I'm going to check this a little bit differently. In Y1, I'm going to put the left-hand side, and instead of T, I'm going to put X. And in Y2, I'm going to put the right-hand side, X minus 2. And then I'm going to go to my table, blue button, table set, and I'm going to go to 2. And then I'm going to go to the table, and I'm going to look. Are my Y1 and Y2 values the same? Then 2 checks. Look down at 4. Are my Y1 and Y2 values the same? Yes. So I've checked both of them at the same time. Okay, it makes it super easy. How do I solve this problem?
Is it a Y?
That is a Y.
Is it a 4 or a Y?
That's a Y.
Minus 6 or-
The first thing we're going to do is get the radical on a side by itself. Now, how do I undo this radical?
Square.
So y equals y squared minus 12y plus 36. Again, first times first is the y squared. Outer times outer, inner times inner is a negative 6 and a negative 6, which is a negative 12, and then a positive 36. Subtract the y from the y to get it equal to 0. Y squared minus 13y plus 36. Now that we have a quadratic equation, we've got to factor. Factors of 36 that add to give you 13. Y times y is y squared. Y minus 9 equals 0, so add 9. I beg your pardon? Both of them would be negative, yes.
Thought it had to equal negative 13.
It does. Negative 9 plus a negative 4 is a negative 13. The last one being positive tells you to add your numbers to get the middle one. Whatever the middle sign is, that's what your number signs are. So if it's a middle negative, then both of them are negative. Add 4. So y equals 4. All right, so we're going to check this one again. And we're going to go back into y is equal to. And I'm going to clear that out and just do the square root of x, arrow over, plus 6. Go down into y2 and put the x. We're checking the original problem. So now I'm just going to go to my table and I'm looking for 4 and 9. So 4, what do you notice? They are not the same. You have an 8 and a 4, so that means 4 is extraneous. We've got to mark it out. Then we're going to go down to where x is 9, and we have a 9 and a 9. So y equals 9 is the only answer. Okay? Let's try one that has more than one radical. All right? Up to this point, that's all Algebra 2 work. So we have 2 radicals. Do we have one of the radicals on a side by itself? Yes. So we can go ahead and just square both sides.
X
x
minus 9.
plus 2 equals. Now, remember when you have something squared, that means that you have to FOIL it. We've been doing that all along. First times first is 49. Outer times outer is a negative 7 square root of x minus 9. Inner is a negative 7 square roots of x minus 9. Plus, negative times negative is a positive, the square root of x minus 9 quantity squared. So you have to FOIL it out. 49 minus 14 square roots of x minus 9 plus x minus 9. And it still equals the x plus 2. 49 minus 9 is 40. Minus 14, x minus 9 plus x. Now, you still have a problem with the square root in it, so you have to get that radical on a side by itself. So you're going to have to move everything to the other side. So I'm going to subtract the x, and I'm going to subtract the 40.
38.
Negative 38 equals a negative 14 square root x minus 9. Before I square it, I really need to get the radical on a side by itself first. So the first thing I'm going to do is divide by that negative 14. Math fraction enter. 19 over 7 equals the square root of x minus 9. Now we're going to square both sides. And then I'm going to add the 9. X equals 802 over 49. If I didn't mess up.
That's great. Now we check.
And now we check. Now, because that's a crazy decimal, I am going to store that in my x value. Okay? And then I'm going to go to my original function, and I'm going to do the square root of x plus 2. And I'm going to push enter. And I'm going to go to the other side, and I'm going to do 7 minus the square root of x plus 9 and push enter. Do those two things equal?
Is it minus?
Oh, it is a minus 9. That would mess you up. 7 minus x minus 9. And 37ths and 37ths works. Yay! So make sure you check it. So I've shown you several different ways that you can check your answer. So once you work it out, check it to make sure that it works. All right?